show. We've got a very cozy project for you this week. We are going to show you how to make a cowl scarf. We're going to show you how you can make it regular so that it sits cozily underneath your chin, or how you can make it extra, like this one, so that you can pull it right up and over your head, roll back the edge like a nice cuff, and be all ready for a stroll through the snowflakes when they arrive. We are going to make today's cowl using Scarfie by Lion Brand, and we'd like to thank Lion Brand Yarns for sponsoring today's video. I love Scarfie. We've actually made another project using Scarfie here on the show, and it comes in a whole bunch of really pretty combinations. The cool thing about Scarfie is that the color kind of just gradually changes in an ombre kind of fashion from top to bottom and then repeats. So it's self-striping, but not in the typical self-striping way that, say, some of the other cakes are made, where there's very bold color changes. This one's much subtler, and I love the way it comes out. Scarfie is an acrylic wool blend, mostly acrylic, a little bit of wool, and it's a size 5 chunky, bulky weight yarn. So it's extra fluffy, and in order to make our brick stitch cowls even more lacy and extra, we are using an even larger hook than we normally would with today's project. We're going to show you sizing for adults and kids, and we are going to have a whole bunch of fun getting cozy. Scarfie comes in a bunch of really pretty colorways, and we've put a link to lionbrand.com in the description box and the pinned comments down below, so you can pop over and check them all out for yourself. So without further ado, let's grab a hook, grab a ball of Scarfie, we'll head on over to the craft table, and we'll stitch it up together. Cue the colors! In order to make our brick stitch cowl scarf, we're using Scarfie by Lion Brand. Each ball of Lion Brand Scarfie has 150 grams or 312 yards in it. It's a size 5 bulky weight yarn, and this is an acrylic wool blend. It's nice and soft. I really love this colorway. This one in particular is cream teal. In addition to our yarn, we're going to want a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and a 6.5 or 7 millimeter hook, also known as a K or a 10.5 in the US. So 6.5 millimeters or 7 millimeters. This one in particular is 7, but that's a pretty negligible difference, so don't worry if you've only got one or the other. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. We want to begin with a slip knot. We do not want tight tension for this project, so if you find you are a little tight in your foundation row or even with your stitches, you can go up another hook size. So you can use a size 7.5 or even an 8 millimeter hook. That's also known as an L or an 11. Nice, soft, loose chains and stitches. This is a size 5 yarn, and it's nice and sort of on the fluffy side. So you don't want to be tight. You want this to have a nice, soft drape. For adults, we are going to chain 72. For children, we are going to chain 60 to begin. So 72 for adults, 60, that's 60 for children. Once you've chained 72 for an adult or 60 for a child, make sure your foundation chain row hasn't twisted on you. I like to run it between my thumb and forefinger, all the way back to the beginning, making sure that that chain stitch is always facing up. Then you're going to find the first chain you made, here it is here, join with a slip stitch to make a ring. We are working the brick stitch in the round. The brick stitch consists of 2 repeating rows. There's the odd row and the even row. The odd row is what I like to call the mortar part of the brick stitch pattern. The even row is sort of like the bricks. Every odd row, or row 1, begins with a chain 1. The chain 1 does not count as a single crochet or a stitch. It is just there to get us up to the right height. Into the same chain that we joined our yarn in, we are going to single crochet. So single crochet in the same stitch that you joined in. That is this big stitch right here. Now we are going to chain 2, skip 2, so this big chain is big, make sure you're not counting it as an extra stitch, chain 2, skip 2, single crochet into the next stitch. Chain 2, skip the next 2 chains, single crochet into the next chain, chain 2, keeping our stitch work nice and easy going. We don't want anything to be too tight. We want this to be a nice drapey scarf. So single crochet into the next stitch, chain 2, skip 2, single crochet into the next stitch, all the way around, and that is the odd row, or what I like to think of as the mortar row. At the end of row 1, and indeed every odd row, you'll chain 2, skip the last 2 chains or stitches of the row. This last little guy here is what we often call the false stitch. It's what's created when you join with a slip stitch working in the round. So you see that little chain 1 that we began with that pops right out of it? That is technically used by that stitch. So sometimes we use the false stitch in patterns, but in this pattern we are not. So chain 2, skip the last 2, find the single crochet that began the row, and you're going to join with a slip stitch to it. That is row 1. That is how every odd row operates. Chain 1, single crochet in the same stitch as joining. Chain 2, skip 2, single crochet into the next stitch. Chain 2, skip 2, single crochet into the next stitch, and so on. At the end of every odd row, for an adult scarf cowl, you will have 24 chain 2 spaces. For a child's, you will have 20 chain 2 spaces. Every even row, or row 2 in this case, begins with a chain 3. The chain 3 does count as a double crochet stitch, so chain 3 counts as a double crochet, and then we're going to look to the next chain 2 space. We're going to work 2 double crochet into the chain 2 space. Remember to keep nice, easy going tension here. 2 double crochet into the chain 2 space, double crochet into the next stitch, which is a single crochet from the previous row. And that's all you do all the way around. 2 double crochet into every chain 2 space, and a double crochet into every single crochet stitch from the previous row. So there's a little single crochet. And this is what I think of as the brick row. So now we're laying the bricks down over top of our little mortar row. At the end of this row, you will have 72 double crochet stitches for an adult, or 60 double crochet stitches for a child. Remember, that includes the chain 3 that began the row. Please visit our shop and purchase a pattern. It helps support our show, and we'll put a link to our shop in the description box down below. To finish row 2, or every even row, work your last 2 double crochet stitches into the last chain 2 space. Find the chain 3 that began the row and join with a slip stitch to the top of it. Because remember, we do treat that chain 3 as a stitch. You will have 72 double crochet, including that chain 3, if you're making the adult size, or 60 if you're making it for a child. And that's all there is to the pattern. Right where you are to start row 3 or every odd row, you chain 1 and single crochet into the same stitch that you joined in. So that sits right on top of that chain 3. Chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches, find the third and single crochet into it. Chain 2, remember, nice and easy with the tension, skip 2 stitches, single crochet into the next stitch, and so on. That is your odd row. You will join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet you made when you get all the way back around to the beginning, and you will have 24 chain 2 spaces for an adult, 20 chain 2 spaces for a child. At the end of every odd row, chain your last 2, skip your last 2 stitches. Remember, that little false stitch here doesn't count. Just find that first single crochet you made. If you have trouble spotting it, you might want to put a stitch marker on it after you make it at the beginning of every odd row. Join with a slip stitch to the top of that first single crochet, and then count them up. 24 chain 2 spaces for the adult, 20 chain 2 spaces for the kid's size. Every even row begins with a chain 3. That does count as a double crochet. Work 2 double crochet into every chain 2 space all the way around, and don't forget the double crochet into each single crochet from the previous row. At the end of every even row, work your last 2 double crochet into the last chain 2 space, find the chain 3 that began, and join with a slip stitch. Once again, that's 72 stitches in total for adults and 60 stitches in total for children. Now, you can continue to work the brick stitch alternating between the odd row and the even row for 22 rows, or 20 to 22 rows for children, depending on how deep you want to make it, and between 22 to 24 rows for adults, or you can just keep going until you run out of yarn. And I intend to do that because I want this to be a really deep cowl, something I can really snuggle down into. So if you just want sort of a nice short cowl scarf, I'd say 20, 22 rows for children, 22, 24 rows for adults. But it's up to you how deep you want to make it, and you can end on any row. It doesn't have to be an odd row or an even row, so you can just work until a particular length that you like and then call it quits, or you can just continue to crochet until you run out of yarn. Whether you have made your cowl 20 rows tall or 24 rows tall, or use the entire ball of Scarfie like I did here, I have just a little tiny bit left over. This is 36 rows in total. It totals 20 inches tall by 13 inches wide. It is nice and stretchy. However tall you made your cowl, once you've finished, you can snip your yarn, fasten off, weave in your tails, and it's all ready to wear. One ball of Scarfie in that beautiful, chunky, bulky weight size 5 yarn in a pretty set of colors. A very simple stitch pattern, the brick stitch, and very quickly you have yourself a super extra, super cozy hooded cowl. I love this thing, and if it gets too warm, you can always just tuck it down and tuck it in underneath your chin. You can roll it for a little extra cuff. You can pull it back up. I love it. And I hope you enjoyed making it along with us too. We will see you soon here on the Jayda and Stitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have a great week. Bye everybody!
Hi everybody! Mr. InStitches here. Thank you for watching today. Here are some of our other videos you might be interested in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.